What's up, everyone? We are back at it today with a nice Sunday NCAA basketball slate for March 3rd. We're going to be posting daily NCAA basketball videos all the way through March Madness, so hit the like button to keep these picks coming and subscribe so you don't miss our daily uploads. These picks are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com, where you can get all of our best picks and predictions on every major sport. While you are here, don't forget to comment below with any questions, opinions, or bets on today's college basketball or NBA slates. I read and respond to every single comment. Now let's dive into our first game of the day, Seton Hall versus Yukon. Seton Hall comes into this game fresh off a blowout loss at number 12 Creighton. Yeah, getting blown out at Creighton is not really something to be ashamed of, but Seton Hall has not been looking that good recently, and they did not keep this thing competitive. The Pirates only attempted 9 3-pointers in the entire game, making 2 of them. Shooting 22% from the field is not going to get the job done against anybody, and definitely not against one of the best teams in the country. The Pirates are a relatively good rebounding team. Their defense could use a little bit of work, and their offensive production is just not good enough. Against Creighton, they got dominated on the boards, and that could be a problem for them in this game as well, because they're taking on the Yukon Huskies, who've been playing great. They bounced back from their tough loss at Creighton with a blowout win over Villanova. Before that loss against Creighton, they had a blowout win over Marquette, so they're kind of holding serve where we would expect Yukon to be at right now in the season. They're prepping for a huge tournament run. Their expectations are definitely very, very high. At 15-2, they basically have the Big East sewn up, which is a pretty big accomplishment. They've got a monster in Tristan Newton. This team is very solid up and down the roster. Cam Spencer is great. This squad is poised to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. However, they don't really have a whole lot to play for right now, and they're in a look-ahead spot. After the Seton Hall game, they're going to have to travel to take on number 5 Marquette. That is why we are actually going with Seton Hall plus 15 points in this one. Keeping things close at Yukon is going to be a challenge, but I think Seton Hall is up for it. This is effectively their last big game of the season before it comes to conference tournament time. Seton Hall is going to be trying to make a case for themselves that they're worthy of some sort of NCAA consideration or maybe even an NIT bid. Yukon's in a huge look-ahead spot. Give me Seton Hall in this one. Next up, we've got the Indiana Hoosiers heading to Maryland to take on the Terrapins. Indiana comes into this game fresh off a win over Wisconsin, so we see them in a little bit of a letdown spot. This has not been the season the Hoosiers had hoped it would be. They're 10-7 in Big Ten play. They're only 15-13 overall. They are not going to be making a postseason tournament this season. Malik Reneau is actually a monster. Like, he's a very good player, definitely capable of leading a team in a major conference, but right now this squad just doesn't put up enough offense. 72 points per game, that's not going to get the job done. Their defense isn't very good. Their rebounding is bad. They're just not a very good squad. Up and down the roster, they don't have enough to compete. They'd lost 4 games before that win over Wisconsin, so now they find themselves in a letdown spot, and they have to travel to Maryland to take on the Terrapins, who are in a bounce-back spot themselves. They just lost at Northwestern in a very close 68-61 game. Maryland has been kind of all over the place. They have some big wins this season, though. They're definitely looking to make a case for themselves to be in the NCAA tournament. This team plays elite defense. Their offense isn't that great, but they have a superstar scorer in Jameer Young. His 20 points and almost 5 assists per game make him one of the elite players in the Big Ten. This team can rebound the ball, and when you've got rebounding and defense and you're playing on your home court, that is a recipe for success. We're going to take Maryland -9 in this one, with Indiana in a letdown spot and Maryland fresh off a loss. Next up, we're headed to the MAAC. We got the Iona Gales heading to the Marist Red Foxes. Iona comes into this game fresh off a 4th straight loss. They did not keep things competitive at home playing against Quinnipiac. This team is terrible on the boards, like really, really bad. Their defense isn't very good. Greg Gordon is putting up 16 points per game on over 50% shooting. That's very solid, but against Quinnipiac, Iona couldn't even keep things close despite shooting twice as many free throws, making 8 3-pointers. They got dominated on the boards, and I think that could possibly happen to them here against Marist, who's been playing pretty well. They come into this game fresh off a big win over Fairfield, so we're a little bit concerned about a letdown spot, but right now Marist has to be in desperation mode. They're trying to fight their way to the top of the MAC, and they are only a single loss back of Quinnipiac, and they've got the tiebreaker over Fairfield now, so they have to feel like they've got some sort of chance. This team is not amazing on offense, but their defense is fantastic. I think they'll rebound the ball very well in this game. We're going to take Marist at home -4, and they're the far better teams and have tons still to play for in the MAAC. Marist is also 7-4 against the spread playing at home. That's a pretty reasonable number. Next up, we got one of the biggest rivalry games of the day, Michigan at Ohio State. Michigan comes into this game looking terrible, like they've looked all season long. They didn't keep things close at Rutgers at all. They had actually played a decent game against Purdue the other day, but that's not going to matter, and they didn't come away with the win. Michigan's banged up. They they don't have all their players back. They are not a very good offensive team. Their defense is terrible. They're giving up almost 80 points per game. Their rebounding can be competitive at times, but is it really going to be competitive playing on the road at Ohio State? That seems kind of like a big ask to me. The Buckeyes come to this game fresh off a solid win at home against Nebraska. They've won 2 in a row and 3 of 4 overall, including that win over number 2 Purdue. That's a huge deal for this team. This squad is showing that they can really hang with the better teams in their conference. The Buckeyes dominated the boards against Nebraska. They shot the ball really well. They got to the free throw line. They really did everything you want to see them do playing at home against a tough opponent. We're going to go with Ohio State -9 at home. Michigan is terrible. They're very banged up, and Ohio State will be looking to blow out their rival here and run up the score. Michigan is only 2-8 against the spread when they're playing on the road this season. Next up, we're heading over to the American. We've got UAB heading to Memphis. UAB comes into this game fresh off a tough loss at home against Wichita State. Yet another instance of UAB playing down to the level of its competition. This Blazer squad has tons of talent. They're very good on the boards. They can play great defense. They can really run up the score when they are focused and playing well, but they've been inconsistent. They just tend to play up or down to the level of their competition, and that is not a good recipe for success. This team has work to do if they're going to prove that they're worthy of being in the NCAA tournament. They're only 18-10 overall. They're not going to be finishing in the top 2 or 3 in the American. They're only 10-5 in conference play, and losses like that one to Wichita State, those are really black marks against your team. Memphis comes into this game fresh off a 3rd straight win. They took down Charlotte. They took down FAU. Those are big wins. The win against Charlotte was an absolute blowout. The win over FAU was very, very close. Both of those games were at home. Now they have to take on a team they already lost to this season. They went to UAB and lost 97-88. Memphis has been pretty inconsistent. They are a great offensive team. They're offensive powerhouse, but their defense is not good. The rebounding can kind of come and go. Obviously, they looked good at ECU their last time out, but this is not an ECU team they're going to be taking on. Memphis has been terrible against the spread at home, going only 4-10 against the spread on their home court. UAB has been pretty good against the spread on the road, going 6-4, and they're getting a bunch of points. We see UAB in a big bounce back spot. They won in this matchup earlier in this season. They're getting 7.5 points. They play up to the level of their competition. All of that is leading up to a UAB and the points bet from me. We don't trust Memphis in this one. Sure, they might get the win late, but I think this is going to be a very close game, so give me UAB. The next game we're going to look at is Rutgers heading to Nebraska. Rutgers comes in this game fresh off a blowout win over Michigan, but that's not an accomplishment at all this season. This squad really doesn't have any go-to scorers. Their offensive numbers are very mediocre, but they play some good defense. This team has work to do if they're going to sniff any sort of important postseason play. They have been a little bit better down the stretch, winning 5 of their last 8, but 2 of those wins came over Michigan. Their best win in that stretch was over Wisconsin, who's been fading hard here at the end of the season. They got blown out at Purdue. They got kind of blown out at Minnesota. I don't really think this is a team we can trust, and I don't think it's a team that really trusts itself. Nebraska comes in this game fresh off a tough loss at Ohio State, but now they get to go home and play on the home court in one of the craziest environments in college sports right now. Nebraska is an elite offensive team. Their defense is very good. They've somehow learned how to crash the boards, which is very impressive. And most importantly, in this one, they're playing on their home court. Nebraska has been insane at home. They're a staggering 14-1 against the spread on their home court. Rutgers is only 4-6 against the spread when they're playing on the road. We see the Scarlet Knights in a letdown spot. Nebraska is in a revenge and a bounce back spot, and they're insane at home. Give me Nebraska -8.5 in this one. I think we see the Cornhuskers get the job done here behind a big offensive night. They're going to shoot the lights out at home in front of the home fans. They're going to get the job done in this one. Next up, we've got the Stanford Cardinals heading to Colorado to take on the Buffalo. Stanford comes into this game not looking so hot. They've lost 5 in a row. This has not been a good season at all for the Cardinals. Their defense is terrible. Their rebounding is not good at all. Their rebounding is atrocious. Stanford hasn't been good at home. They have a fairly solid offensive go-to player in Maxine Renaud, but 15 points per game is not going to carry this team to wins. Right now, they are sitting close to the bottom of the Pac-12. They have had a couple of interesting upset wins. They took down Arizona early in the season and stuff like that, but this team isn't going to be making postseason play. That might not be the case for their opponent. Colorado comes into this game with a bunch of solid wins. They've won 3 in a row recently, taking on resurgent USC, winning in a blowout against Utah, and then taking down Cal by 10 their last time out. Colorado has been insane offensively all year long. They're putting up over 80 points per game. KJ Simpson is an absolute monster. He's got nearly 20 points per game and nearly 5 assists. This kid's going in the draft. He is an absolute absolute unit. Colorado can rebound the ball, especially playing at home. We see them looking really, really good. Stanford is only 3-6-1 against the spread on the road. Colorado is 10-6 against the spread at home. Give me Colorado -12. It's a lot of points, so that is a little bit concerning. Colorado has Oregon on deck, so not that scary of an opponent. They do have to travel for that game, but we're not worried about that. We like Colorado. They're going to need the blowout win here against a conference opponent. They need it. They're trying to build a tournament resume. We see them blowing out Stanford in this one. Next up, we're heading to the Missouri Valley. We're looking at Bradley headed to Drake. The Bradley Braves come into this game winners of 3 in a row, but when your wins are over Missouri State, Illinois State, and SIU, we're not exactly going to throw you a ticker tape parade. Bradley is a poor rebounding team. They do play some defense like all teams in the Missouri Valley tend to do, but they're just not that good. They have Connor Hickman leading the way scoring the ball, but he's only shooting 46% from the field, only averaging 14 points per game. When they've played the better teams in Missouri Valley, things have not gone so well. The rebounding really concerns me in this matchup. Looking at Drake, the Bulldogs have been excellent. Right now, they're only 1 game back of Indiana State for the top spot in the Missouri Valley. They come into this game fresh off a big scare. They barely won by 2 points at lowly UIC. This Bulldogs team is not supposed to be playing close games against opponents like that. Drake is putting up over 80 points per game. Their defense is very good. Their rebounding is good. They have elite ball movement. Tucker DeVries is a monster, scoring over 20 points per game and dishing out almost 4 assists. This needs to be a slam dunk spot for Drake. They need to bounce back from that loss. This is their last conference game on the schedule. They need to get the work done in this one. We're going to take Drake -4. Bradley's overrated currently because of the 3-game winning streak against bad teams. Drake has won in this matchup at Bradley a couple weeks ago, and they're a great offensive squad. We're also looking at Drake being a reasonable 8-6 against the spread at home. That's a number we're willing to back, and we're definitely willing to back Drake in this one. Last but not least, we see another Missouri Valley Conference showdown. We got Murray State heading to Indiana State. The Racers of Murray State come into this game fresh off of a loss against Belmont. They got absolutely blown out. They're just not a good team. They haven't had the season they envisioned. They're only 9-10 in conference play. They don't really have a solid go-to offensive option, and that has shown by the fact they're ranked around 300th in the nation in offensive production. Their defense is not good. Their rebounding is the big concern in this game. They're terrible on the boards. This squad just does not get it done on the glass, and they kind of don't get it done in general. Earlier this season, they did keep it relatively close, losing by 9 to Indiana State, but I don't think that's exactly what we're going to see here because we've got a different Indiana State team in this one. The Sycamores come into this game winners of 3 in a row. They've been really taking care of business, blowing out opponents ever since losing that weird game at SIU and that weird game at home against Illinois State. They had those 2 hiccup games, but now they're getting back after it. We've seen Robbie Avila, better known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, coming out playing great. This is one of the best offensive teams in the nation. They're scoring almost 85 points per game, guys. That is bonkers. They're very good on the boards. They've got plenty of size. They move the ball extremely well. This is just a great team. Indiana State is 9-2-1 against the spread playing at home. That is a number we can definitely get behind. We're going to take Indiana State to get the win and cover over a terrible Murray State team that can't score the ball in this one. And I think we see the Sycamores just keep on steamrolling as they clinch the Missouri Valley Conference regular season crown. That's all the games we have time for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to comment below with any questions or comments about these picks or today's slate, and click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com to see all of our top plays. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. We'll see you guys tomorrow for more NCAA basketball action.